한국의 신도시가 전 세계 신도시 중 최고라는 평가를 받으며 해외 언론의 주목을 받고 있습니다. 온실가스 감축과 기후변화 적응 문제가 전 세계적인 화두로 떠오름에 따라 저탄소 친환경 도시가 유일한 미래도시의 대안으로 떠오르고 있는데요. 한국에는 여러 곳의 신도시가 있지만 해외에서 가장 큰 주목을 받는 도시는 바로 송도 국제도시입니다. 지난 2007년 미국 블룸버그 TV에서는 한국의 송도 국제도시를 소개하는 인터뷰를 시작으로 지속적으로 송도 개발 프로젝트에 대해 관심을 가져왔습니다. 외신들은 한국이 일찍이 선견지명을 가지고 인천을 동북아의 관문으로 만들기 위한 준비를 했고 인천국제공항 계획을 세우는 동시에 인천국제공항에서 다리 하나만 건너면 되는 가까운 위치에 송도 국제도시를 개발한 것은 미래를 내다본 큰 투자였다고 전하고 있습니다. 또한 인구를 어떻게 모을 것인지, 어떻게 가장 친환경적인 도시를 조성할 수 있는지, DMZ와 불과 40km 떨어져 있는 위치에서 안정적인 생활을 지속할 수 있는지에 대해 그동안 많은 외신들이 관심을 가져왔는데요. 프랑스 민영 방송사 카날 플러스의 간판 다큐멘터리 프로그램인 레페 파피용에서도 주목받는 도시 송도를 주제로 직접 한국을 방문 취재하기도 했습니다. 미국 ABC 방송국에서도 친환경 기술 도입을 통해 경이로운 발전을 이룬 사례로 송도를 소개했습니다. 영국 BBC가 발간하는 과학기술 매거진 BBC 난리지도 송도를 최첨단 정보기술과 친환경 기술이 접목된 미래도시로 집중 조명했습니다. 이렇게 전 세계 언론들의 관심을 받는 가운데 송도의 개발은 계속되어 왔습니다. 최근 미국 블룸버그 TV에서는 또 한 번 한국을 찾아 송도에서 그 해답을 찾기를 원했는데요. 해당 영상을 번역해 공유합니다.
There are about 150 urban megadevelopments branded as new cities underway, and they're located in over 40 countries around the world. We're in the age of new cities right now.
This is one of them, Songdo in South Korea. Looking at the city today, you could almost forget that 2 decades ago it was just an idea.
We used to just joke around calling Songdo Songberia. That's a combination of the word Songdo and Siberia.
The master plan starts with a blank page. There's not a line for a road, there's no dot for a subway stop. In this particular case, after all, it was landfill. So you're literally starting tabula rasa before there is even any terra firma.
As the urban population grows, so does our need for new cities, and there are hopes that Songdo could be a blueprint for other developments around the world. But the design and construction of this $40 billion smart city hasn't been universally well received.
It's not the nicest place on earth, but it's definitely one of the best examples of new cities developed in the last 20 years that actually have people living in here that haven't been pushed or forced to live here.
We call it Tomorrowland, both to kind of reference this idea that it feels a little Disney-ish and very manicured, but also the joke that like it'll be better tomorrow.
New cities have generally always been built by governments or kingdoms. They have been built since antiquity, but there are moments of intensification. And now, since the last 20-25 years, new cities are seen as being profit-making machines, basically. Some of these are even private gated cities. It's almost like a gigantic mall, except it's the size of a city. And so a tremendous amount is being invested in these projects in the hopes that they'll attract foreign direct investment and sort of spark a new type of digital economy.
One of the most expensive examples of this idea is Songdo International Business District. The city is built on reclaimed land in the Yellow Sea, just a 2-hour flight from major destinations in Asia. The land reclamation began in the mid-1990s, and Songdo became an extension of Incheon, a neighboring city whose government set up the Incheon Free Economic Zone.
There were hundreds of consultants, of engineers, designers, forecasters, material science people. So overall, you probably had, I would say, up to 1,000 different designers and consultants working on this city at one time.
When it comes to the urban fabric of Songdo, we have a relatively large city block and large avenues and a lot of really big scale green areas and open spaces.
Alberto Gonzalez is an architect and urban planner and has been living in Songdo since 2017.
One of the nice things about Songdo urban design is that the blocks are very open, so you can actually walk through all the blocks. Many of them have outdoor gyms, others have playgrounds for kids, so it's literally open for anyone who wants to go in. That's a kind of a key distinction. If you compare to other Asian cities in which you typically have gated communities. So yeah, here is one of the small pocket parks. And even though you are not too far from one of the main avenues, you feel like in a more protected side. I think it really makes the city a bit more vibrant.
One of the tenets that we accepted or embraced in New Songdo City Plan was to make it a pedestrian city, a place where you'd be comfortable walking from district to district or within districts. But Korean planning and Korean practice of building had embraced the automobile.
Zoning restrictions in Korea mean that buildings along these large avenues are usually set back from the street to protect residents from noise and pollution.
Plus the buffer area. I mean, we literally have a huge avenue. It's almost like a highway type of scale. So the idea is that in this central section, there's enough room to put in a light rail here, like a tram, and maybe 1 or 2 lanes at both sides can get reduced and can be occupied with seating areas, with pop-up kiosks. So by getting rid of certain areas that are now purely used by cars, we can actually increase the chances for randomness to happen. So this type of urban randomness is actually what makes city life much more interesting.
Technology was another key element in Songdo's initial design, and it became one of the first smart city projects in the world.
I see a lot of CCTV.
If you go out on the street, you don't see any power poles or wires. They're all underground.
We designed systems that would ensure a highly efficient use of energy and other resources, like water, even the use of waste. So this is the sort of thing you can do when you design a city from scratch, because those infrastructural systems are not there.
This is Songdo's Operations Center, which manages all the infrastructure as well as monitors over 5,000 sensors and cameras spread around the city.
A lot of these new city projects brand themselves as smart.
The risk of failure is high, with some new cities turning into expensive ghost towns that aren't designed to cater to the needs of locals.
Oftentimes locals are priced out of these new cities because the new cities are not built for them, they're built for investors. So we're seeing cities that are only 10%, 20% occupied. The units are all sold, there's just nobody living in them. There are a lot of ghost cities in China that have been filled in. There are other ghost cities that are still very under-occupied. But whether these new cities get built or not, whether they happen or not, whether they fill in or not, people are still going to make money.
Songdo seems to be defying this ghost city trend. Its population is tracking its development, now at about 60% of the original target of 300,000. And there's an appetite to replicate its success. The development has been described as an example of a city in a box, with ready-made and tested solutions that can be quickly applied elsewhere.
And you could see if somebody needs to build very quickly, they might want to understand some templates of techniques that have been used before.
I think Songdo is a successful story. It's definitely something that is going to be a work in progress. And the typical question is, can we replicate this? Can this city in a box type of environment be literally transferred to other areas? I think there's so many ingredients that came into the mix for Songdo to happen that I certainly think that it's not easy to replicate.
This sort of notion that we can build something that other people will want to emulate and we'll be the first, we'll be a model for other people to copy. That's a really appealing aspect of a lot of these new cities.
여러분의 소중한 의견을 남겨주세요. 바쁘시더라도 구독과 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 지금까지 단골이시였습니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.